everyone, and welcome back. We're tackling a big one today, a book that's practically a legend in the personal finance world, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It's true. This book has been a bestseller for what feels like forever now, and for good reason, right?
Absolutely. But we're not just skimming the surface today. We're going deeper, beyond the usual takeaways, to uncover those aha moments that can truly change the way you think about money.
It's funny you say that because Rich Dad, Poor Dad can seem deceptively simple at first glance.
Right.
But the thing is, when you really start to unpack the core principles, that's when it gets really interesting. That's when you realize this book can completely shift your perspective on wealth building.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so exciting. So, where do we even begin with a book as iconic as this? Well, it all starts with this idea of the two dads. Kiyosaki grows up with these two contrasting father figures, his biological father, who's highly educated but always struggled financially, and then his friend's father, the rich dad, a self-made entrepreneur.
Right, and it's that contrast that sets the stage for the whole book.
Totally. And their completely different mindsets about money are a huge part of
That's
that.
true. You see this clash of perspectives really clearly with those two quotes from the book.
Mm.
The love of money is the root of all evil versus the lack of money is the root of all evil. It makes you think, you know? Two very different beliefs, each shaping how those dads approached money. Which one resonates more with you? Have you thought about it?
Oh, absolutely. I think growing up, I definitely absorbed that money is the root of all evil kind of thinking. And it took books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad to help me realize, whoa, hold on, it's not that black and white. It's not
Mhm.
about chasing riches for the sake of it. It's about understanding how money works and using it as a tool to create the life you want.
I think that's such an important point because it circles back to this idea of developing your own financial literacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not about blindly accepting one perspective or the other. It's about examining both sides, like with those contrasting quotes and figuring out what feels true to you. What do you think about that?
It's huge. I mean, how has that shaped your own journey with money, would you say?
Hmm, that's a good question.
And speaking of big lessons, can we talk about 9-year-old Kiyosaki's first business venture?
Oh, yeah, the toothpaste,
I know, right?
the infamous toothpaste counterfeiting.
Hmm.
It's a classic Rich Dad, Poor Dad story.
Always a good one. So he and his friend Mike have this idea to make money by creating their own brand of toothpaste. And let's just say their production methods were, how do I put this?
A little less than FDA approved?
Maybe. Yeah, not something you'd find on a shelf at the store today.
Not a chance.
But here's the thing. Their little operation gets shut down pretty quickly, as you can imagine. But, and this is where it gets interesting, Kiyosaki's rich dad wasn't upset about the business failing. He saw it as a valuable lesson in taking action, even if it means, hitting a few roadblocks along the way.
This story always highlights this crucial point for me. Even at 9, Kiyosaki was already out there learning through action. And that's something Rich Dad encourages us all to do, right?
Absolutely.
So think about it. What's one entrepreneurial dream you had? Maybe one you wish you'd actually gone for.
Yeah.
And what lesson can you take from that unrealized venture? Thinking about those unrealized ventures, it reminds me of what the core principles in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this idea of assets versus liabilities. It's
Yeah.
where things start to click, right?
Totally. It's not about how much you earn, it's what you do with it.
That's it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad really emphasizes that the name of the game is acquiring assets, and at the same time, really trying to minimize those liabilities.
It's so true. And he breaks down those terms so simply, like assets put money in your pocket.
Exactly.
And liabilities, well, they take money out.
It's such a simple concept, but it's a total game changer.
Yeah.
And honestly, most people, they're kind of conditioned to think asset means something like, I don't know, a fancy car or a big house.
Oh, totally. The status symbols.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But those things, more often than not, they're liabilities disguised as assets.
Yeah.
Taking money out of your pocket every single month.
It's so true. It's funny. I used to think having a nice car meant you were financially set. You know what I mean?
Right.
But reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad made me realize, whoa, it's not about the stuff. It's more about the cash flow. Where's the money going? Is it flowing towards you or is it flowing away from you? That's the real question.
That's the key. And, a lot of times we get caught up in this cycle, right? Like imagine you get a raise at work, exciting.
Of course. Who doesn't love a raise?
Exactly. But then, almost without realizing it, your lifestyle It kind of inflates to match that new income. Maybe you get a bigger place, a newer car, start taking those fancy vacations. So you're making more, but you're also spending more. And are you really getting ahead? Not really. That's what Kiyosaki calls the rat race.
Running and running, working harder and harder, but not making any real progress financially, right?
Exactly. It's like being on that treadmill that never ends.
Yeah.
But now contrast that with someone who's focused on building up their asset column. They're
Mhm.
putting their money into things like rental properties, businesses, maybe stocks or bonds, maybe even something like intellectual property, things that generate income, even while they're sleeping. That's money working for them.
It's the age-old saying, right? Make your money work for you, not the other way around.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is you don't need to be some millionaire to start building assets. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even starting small, those small but consistent investments can really add up over time. That's the power of compounding.
It's huge. But how can our listeners start applying this right now in their own lives? What would you say is a good first step for someone?
I think it really starts with just being aware. Take a look at your own spending habits. What are you spending on that could be considered a liability? And more importantly, where could you redirect even a small part of your income, maybe even just a few bucks a week, towards building up that asset column? It all starts with that first step.
It all comes back to this idea of financial freedom, right? And I think that's a big part of why Rich Dad, Poor Dad resonates with so many people.
It's true. It's not just about like having a ton of money. It's about having your money work for you. It's
Yeah.
about having choices.
Exactly. Kiyosaki talks about minding your own business, which I
Yes,
love that phrase.
such a good one.
It really captures this idea of building that asset column that eventually becomes your primary income source.
And that's when things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're moving away from relying solely on that earned income, that paycheck from trading your time for money, right? And you're starting to generate more and more passive income that comes in regardless of whether you're working or not.
That's the dream. But I think a lot of people hear passive income and they imagine themselves like on a beach somewhere, money magically appearing in their bank account. But Rich Dad Poor Dad doesn't sugarcoat it. It takes work.
Oh, absolutely. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme. It takes effort. It takes dedication. It's about being proactive,
Hmm.
you know, seeking out opportunities to build those income-generating assets.
Right. And knowing which opportunities are the right ones, which is where that whole financial literacy piece comes in.
100%. That's your superpower. Understanding how all these different assets work, evaluating them, knowing how to manage risk, that's what gives you that edge. It's
Yeah.
about being able to see those opportunities that other people might miss. You know what I mean?
Totally. And he makes this point that anyone can learn this stuff. It's not like you have to be born into wealth or something. It's about being willing to put in the work, the time to educate yourself.
That's the thing about financial literacy. It's a skill you can develop.
Exactly. But I think even more important than the technical knowledge is overcoming those internal barriers, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because Kiyosaki talks about fear,
Yes.
laziness,
Arrogance.
even cynicism.
Oh, yes. Cynicism will get you every time.
All these things that can really sabotage you financially.
It's like shooting yourself in the foot before you even get started.
Right. And he told that story about his friend Richard who misses out on buying a condo for like $5,000 because he listens to his neighbor's negative opinion.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Talk about a missed opportunity.
I know. And it highlights how often our own fear and doubt holds us back.
And the thing is, we always have a choice. We can either let those fears run the show, or we can choose to be proactive, learn from those mistakes, and keep moving forward.
It takes courage to put yourself out there, and that's why finding those mentors, surrounding yourself with people who've walked the path, it makes such a difference.
It normalizes it, right? It makes it feel achievable.
Totally. And, Kiyosaki talks about continuous learning, reading books, going to seminars, listening to audiobooks, just constantly soaking up that financial knowledge. And I think it's also about finding those financial heroes, the people who inspire you to actually take action.
Yes, because when you see someone else doing it, it suddenly becomes real. It's like, okay, if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Exactly. And here's another cool concept from the book, teaching and you shall receive. Like, even if you don't consider yourself an expert, just sharing what you're learning, it can really solidify your own understanding and open up all these new opportunities.
It's true. It's like when you have to teach something, you have to really know it.
Right. So for everyone listening, what's one financial topic you've been wanting to learn more about? Maybe something you've been putting off. It could be real estate. It could be the stock market. It could even be as simple as creating a budget that works for you.
That's it. And it doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing, okay? Just one small step in the right direction.
That's what it's all about.